How you doing, folks? Dermot back again. Sorry I haven't been on this now in a while as we've been really busy with the build for the new unit, but that's coming along, so hopefully should be tied up with that in maybe another 2 or 3 weeks, fingers crossed. But again, a lot of these things are out of my hands. Okay, first what I'm going to talk about today is the Dublin City Marathon. Right, that's coming up on the 30th of October, and a lot of people are starting to prep. So we get an awful lot of questions in about people going, oh, there's a couple of different topics that we need to cover. What type of training should they do? How long the training takes? What about if they've had a previous injury? How much water or hydration they should take on? What they should do for recovery? And what type of shoes they should wear. Okay, so I'm going to cover all those points in this video today. So training time in general, there can be lots of different training plans that you can buy off the internet, but it really depends on what your previous training history is. If you haven't really done much running or you've only done 3s and 5Ks, you're looking at a 20-week program. The 20-week program is divided up into roughly around 3 sessions a week, where you have a longer run at the weekend where you start building up your load or building up the miles underneath your legs, and then you have 2 interval sessions during the week. Now, some people will, the reason we put in the interval sessions and we advise them is because you're running at a faster pace. When you run at a faster pace, you improve your running efficiency. You also put more load down through your calves, your quads, your hamstrings and your glutes. And depending on what speed you're running at, let's say if you're doing this in meters per second, which we do for performance, if you're running below 5 meters a second, think you're using your calf and your quads. If you're running above 5 meters a second, you're using glutes and hamstrings. Now, 5 meters a second, roughly equivalent to about 4 minutes per kilometer, which is quite fast for a marathon. So that's why we introduce the interval training, so it exposes you to the higher speeds without trying to kill you. That's basically the idea. We're not going to make you pant. Will be a little bit tough, but the interval training definitely has far more benefits than doing the slower, longer runs 3 times a week. Ultimately, you can do those 3 sessions, and then you can, if you really had the time to do it, you can add in a gym session, which is nice and light, just keeping those muscles ticking over, getting a little bit of neuromuscular control into it, and then we can tidy up a couple of the injuries that we may have had before. So, next point, previous injuries. A lot of people will, when they go to run a marathon, if they constantly do those slow runs, and then all of a sudden they'll get a calf tweak or they'll get a hamstring tweak or their hip might start to get quite sore or their foot might start to get quite sore. Imagine you driving your car at 3rd gear all day, every day. Something is going to go wrong. You're sitting at one pace. The best athletes always have gears that to be able to go up through. They can run quite slow, moderately fast, very fast. The idea behind it is that you get the tweaks in your hamstrings and your calves because you've developed a running style that overloads those muscles. If you're running quite slow and you're getting a tweak in your calf and your hamstrings, you're not running fast enough to actually put enough force through it to rip the muscle. Most of these pains that you get from it is a case that, right, your muscle is going, right, I'm sick of being worked in the manner that you're working me, and I'm going to give you a dart of pain. I'm not particularly sore, I'm just in a mood. And basically, that's what happens. So what we have to do to try and prevent those injuries is look at your running style, see if we can incorporate more muscles to redirect the force of you landing onto the ground, so your calf isn't taking too much of it or your hamstring isn't taking too much of it, and try and distribute that load a little bit evener. A little bit easier between all the joints and the muscles. Another thing to kind of keep in mind is runners hate doing warm-ups. Now, if you look at the higher level athletes, yes, they need to do warm up because they're higher level athletes, but it also helps everybody when you do it. Doing a warm up just preps the system to be able to accept the load that you're going to put through it when you're running. And it primes the nervous system to react that little bit faster. Like, think about getting out of the bed at like 5 o'clock in the morning. You feel quite lazy, a little bit droopy, and you're not really moving as fast and as alert as you are before. Same thing comes down if you're sitting in an office all day and then you expect to go out and do an interval session without doing a warm-up, you're going to pull something. We designed warm-ups for a reason. They prevent injury. Simple as. Everybody needs them. Sorry to burst everyone's bubble there. Next, we want to talk about hydration. So this comes down to a couple of different factors. Are you a heavy sweater? And if you are a heavy sweater, what is the concentration of salt in your sweat? Simple test, the lick test. If you put your finger across your brow, lick it, is really salty, then you obviously expel more salt than normal. So yes, you need a good bit of hydration. You can use zero tablets, or you can add some salt into your food. If you don't sweat that much and it's not that salty, you just need water going into. As a guide, what we generally say is you should be drinking between 2 and 3 liters of water a day, depending if you're male or female. Heavy sweater, light sweater, and then concentration of sweat, then that will dictate how much salt you need to get into your system. Some people develop cramps after it. Is it a case of salt? Yes, but that's the 1% of the case of salt, a case that they don't have enough salt in their system. Or you can go through your magnesium stuff, which, yes, again, it's the 1%, but we're more looking at how you're using that muscle that's causing the cramp, rather than some sort of internal nutrition deficit that you need. Next, we're going to talk about recovery. So 3 things that are going to affect recovery: food, sleep, mobility. As soon as you're finished your training session, within 20 or 30 minutes, get some sort of a shake into you that's going to replenish your carbohydrates. Depending on how tough the session was, you need more carbohydrates as opposed to less carbohydrates. You need to get a good night's sleep. So again, getting into a nice cool room, optimal temperature between about 18 degrees, 16, 18, 19 degrees, whatever you're comfortable with, but around that ballpark figure. Generally getting about 8 hours sleep undisturbed if you could, but again, with kids, everybody training for a marathon, that's not the easiest. And then finally, you need to add in a bit of a mobility session, which you could do in the gym. Now, as I mentioned before, the gym is only once a week to keep your body ticking over, but you can add your mobility sessions into that and then incorporate it into it. And again, it's only going to take 45-50 minutes in, out, not that long a time. The longest time that it's going to take it is when you get into maybe week 12 to week 20, where you're increasing your miles and you're going for a 12-mile run, 16-mile run, 18-mile run. You're only going up to mile 20. Around 2021, you're not going to go over that for the training, because there's no point in it. You just push yourself a little bit harder for the last couple of miles, and then you complete it. And then finally, shoes. The shoe test, a nice and simple shoe test that I have, is grab a pair of shoes. If you can bend them in the middle really, really easily, they're not the shoe for you. You want a good hard sole that you can run in. Again, you can go into some of the sports shops and they'll say, right, your foot needs this, your foot needs that. Go by comfort. Simplest thing, if this shoe feels comfortable for you, not too tight around the top of the foot, has enough space in the sole of it to support if you have a wide or narrow foot, and it's definitely the right size. I would go along comfort, and that bend test is the easiest way to look at it. Types of shoes, Pegasus are generally quite good, but go into any run shop and they'll be able to guide you a little bit better what shoes they have. And you can kind of take it from there. You can kind of go and have a look at their shoes, see what's online as well, and you might be able to get them a little bit cheaper. But they're the top questions that we have for people that are going running the marathon. Take them on board. It is a 20-week process. You do need to recover. If you've trained for a marathon before, you do need to get those other injuries addressed, because they will poke their head up, and the last thing you want to be doing is putting in all that training, and then 2 weeks or 3 weeks before the marathon, you're in a jock because you didn't look after yourself the weeks before and you just kept on, I have to do the miles. Injuries, hydration, recovery, it's just about forming a couple of habits and bringing them consistently through your training, and that should work. But yeah, guys, hope that helped. And any questions? I feel like I was going shorter in this. The seat just seems to be a little bit broken throughout the video. So yeah, any questions, just give us a shout, and hopefully we'll see you in our new unit in a couple of weeks. Take care.